there are some topics we would love to cover that we don't get to cover. So
Let's do it.
Let's do it.
Yeah. So
what are some wild ones?
Let's talk about some conspiracy theories that have come true. Right. This is where you guys. This is really your wheelhouse.
MK Ultra. Let's start
You've
with
got
that.
30 seconds to answer.
We can
Ready?
start with that.
Go.
Okay. Yeah. This is. So I've got a list here, and let me tell you as we preface a list. A list of. This is from history.howstuffworks.com. So it's going to be procured. These are 11, but these are interesting because these tend to be old. The first is, have you heard of the Tuskegee syphilis experiment?
Yeah.
Start with syphilis.
Of course I have.
Yeah.
Of course I have. No, I have never heard of that.
So this was in 1932.
It's terrible.
The U.S. Public Health Service conspired with the Tuskegee Institute to create a phony syphilis treatment program. The experiment, which involved lying to almost 400 African-American men who had been diagnosed with syphilis, was only supposed to last 6 months, but it was 40 years later before anyone became aware of the research. The government was forced to investigate and shut it down. For 40 years, 400 men were given dangerous chemicals and painful and necessary medical procedures under the guise of actual treatment. And the fact that penicillin had become a known cure for syphilis was hidden from the patients so they could learn more about the disease.
Yeah.
How did this happen?
Oh, it happens.
I mean, like, what's the purpose?
Okay.
Just to kill people?
They literally. I mean, this is how we get right. Honestly, these are the things I think that make us distrust a lot of what the government is. And this will always be the knock on quote conspiracy theories, right? Is that it is there's always counter government. Like a government's always lying, and I don't think always is the key. This is where Nate and I always talk about, or tend to talk about, like. You're not lying 100 out of 100 times. This is the reality. People tell the truth, whether it be our government, politicians. At some point, they tell the truth. They lie a lot.
Yeah.
But they don't lie all the time, right? But in this particular case...
That's how you believe them. Like, that's how they get to you.
That's the deception. It always is, right? It's always like...
Well, you're just telling the truth here and there, obviously.
There's enough truth included that it feels palatable, right? Because if you get a full-on deception, most times you're like, I'm out with this. But if there's stuff weaved in and go, that part of it might be true, then it's believable. So that one is... horrific, right? And
that's terrible.
It took 40 years for them to tell these people that they already had
That's so scary.
Well,
so they're just they were just testing something.
Yes.
Say, hey, this is the cure, and they're just like, we're just going to
the cure.
Oh, you have syphilis.
Yeah.
Come take this vaccine, and they tested it on people.
But they narrowed.
And they already did
African
penicillin and took
American
care of it.
people?
And it was African American people. Yeah.
I
So it
think
seems very overtly racist at the same time.
Yeah, absolutely.
Gross.
At a deeper level too, we can always say we've always desired knowledge. Right, and so we're trying to figure out, hack these things. So that would be the original sort of lust of mankind since the beginning. I want to know more. I want to hack the system.
I just feel like a lot of these, like the syphilis thing, MK Ultra, all this stuff, I think for me, it starts to derive from the Project Paperclip when we brought over all these Nazi scientists that were already doing this stuff. They're already experimenting on people, innocent people, and doing just really, really weird, just sacrilegious,
inhumane,
wacky stuff. Project Paperclip happened, and then it's like, it seems like we have all these really weird stuff that the CIA did, including going to the moon.
Well, it happened.
I think there is a narrative that we've built over our show that you can see that there is like the people of countries, the good patriots of every country, right? And then you have this league of nefarious collective of like we were saying, these clubs, these elites that sort of make rules behind the scenes and do all this stuff. So of course they're going to get the best scientists in the world to be a part of that team, and then make it look like, oh yeah, countries are just going on as normal. We have some relations with other countries, and we're all trying to craft this thing. But really, behind the scenes, there's this group of people that get together, pencils up rooms, and really control the world. Yeah. But how do we know that's true? Well, we're seeing these conspiracy theories one by one come true, right?
Yeah.
So somebody behind the scenes is programming reality, so to speak, for the rest of us. So Luke, what is number 2?
Well, that was rumored forever, right?
Yeah,
and people always.
And then there was a class action lawsuit in 1974 where they awarded $10 million in damages to people. So they had to
1974.
So we're talking, 40 plus years of torturing.
I'm so glad the government learned its lesson. Like, that's like crazy.
Right?
I know that's soon. Like, that's 70s. But golly, I'm so glad they just turned a page.
They're done doing that, right?
Yeah.
Well, Josh, you mentioned Operation Paperclip. that falls on number 3 on this list, and of course,
what's number 2?
We'll get there at some point.
Hey, hold on.
Excited.
So in 1945, the Joint Intelligence Objectives Agency was given an authorization to offer 1,500 German scientists, technicians, and engineers from Nazi Germany and other countries employment in America. President Truman agreed to the program with explicit instructions that it only includes those who were not found to have, quote, been a member of the Nazi Party and more than a nominal participant in its activities or an active supporter of Nazi militarism. So very gray, broad brush there.
1,500 Amish Germans that didn't do anything bad.
So this meant Werner von Braun, Arthur Rudolph, and Hubertus Strughold.
Who all did stuff for the Nazi Party, by the way.
Of course. So von Braun architected their entire rocket and missile program, including building jets and everything else that they had ready to go. So this is, I mean, it's absurd.
So survey says
ding 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 ding.
True.
Guilty.
So this is what. So von Braun, Rudolph, and Strughold were listed as a menace to the security of the Allied forces, would not be allowed. However, as we know, they were decided they had more vital importance to the development of the U.S. rocket program. They created false employment and political biographies and destroyed all evidence connecting them to the Nazi war machine. That's Operation Paperclip. We know that's real now, but at a time that was a conspiracy theory. These are...
And they developed
the fact that it was
all the video games from the 80s, including this.
Their fault.
They built electronic
the
basketball.
fact that Shazam with Sinbad is actually...
Stop. It was
never happened.
Let's
so
not
this
talk
is
about
this
that.
is officially
It makes me scared
proven.
every time we talk about it.
This
That's
is
the
true.
Mandela effect. The fact that never even happened.
When did this get certified true? Is it just who certifies these?
The Paperclip?
Snopes?
Well,
Snoops? Snops?
part of it is
Snopes?
The freedom.
It's the FOIA.
Yeah.
The FOIA Act actually changed a lot of...
okay.
And that's how we know, and it's not even on this list, of course, but that's how we know most recently of the JFK assassination and the involvement of the CIA. We know there was an inside job. But, I mean, since the beginning...
Yeah,
we're really
it's always
going
been like
for it.
one guy from a book depository who who had a Russian communist tie once somehow.
Well, there's that video that was floating around about Oswald saying he was a pawn.
Patsy. He's a patsy, dude.
Yeah.
And then Jack
Dude, that
Ruby
was the
shot
first
him.
conspiracy that I just dove down, and I'm like, this is 100%. And like isn't that where they coined the term conspiracy theorists?
Yeah.
Like because the CIA literally coined that term. To just immediately just like, hey, don't even listen to these people.
It's a theory.
Hey, they're a conspiracy theorist. It's not a big deal. But then we have things like this that come up.
It's meant to diminish and mock.
Yeah.
And push truth from the narrative.
Just throw it
narrative,
out.
Right?
Yeah.
You mentioned MK Ultra. That's actually on this list as well. It's number 10. This is something Nate and I we are going to cover in the future because we've talked to a few folks. But MK Ultra is a pretty well known CIA project, a mind control project in the 50s. With the Cold War heating up, the U.S. hoped to discover what was called a truth serum. And what they did is they secretly dosed unwitting U.S. and Canadian citizens with LSD, and they would interrogate and sometimes torture the participants. They paid hospitals, prisons, universities for their participation and their silence. In 1973, CIA Director Richard Helms ordered all documents related to MK Ultra be destroyed. Eventually, the conspiracy was uncovered. Nobody involved in the project, quote, remembered the details. Yeah. And there's not a complete timeline as the events remain incomplete. Dude, so I tend to think that it never stopped.
No. Yeah.
It just changes.
It just changes. This is always
that was training and testing.
Yes.
That's all it is. Because there's no way they're not trying it again. I remember hearing a story about a young kid that literally they had stings basically in brothels and stuff like that, or in drug houses, and they would go in there, they would drug these people unbeknownst to them, and then they would leave. And this guy, no joke, is walking home, wakes up like 5 or 6 hours later, blood on his hands, and he had just killed 2 people. And this is all part, like, he was confirmed he was at an MK Ultra house, like where they were doing testing. And it's like he just blacks out and suddenly he just kills 2 people. Like this, like that's
a lot of this.
How is that possible?
Like, we all watched Zoolander. We know how this works.
You learn martial arts. Kill the Prime Minister of Malaysia.
Yeah. But yeah, I mean, it's
the prime rib of Propecia.
But I think the main thing that we started with this episode is that this knowledge starts from somewhere. It doesn't just pop into our heads and we figure it out. And that's a big UFO narrative. It's like, maybe there are government UFOs. Well, we know there are government UFOs, but where does this technology originate from? Where does it come from? Where does this MK Ultra mind control idea come from? I think there is parts of the human brain that sort of got maybe cooled off, shut down, part of the fall. We're not as up on our game, but what we've learned on our show is humans can receive telepathic communication. So they know how to send a lot of these creatures messages to us. And eventually, we talked about technology, transhumanism. We're going to be able to read minds again. So we're going to be able to communicate without the need of a phone. You can send messages to someone's brain. I don't know how far, but clearly, we've heard it many times. Specifically, the last episode we were on with you guys, the trapper could hear the aliens communicating with the officers before the guy before one of them got shot, and he was just there and take his story, leave it. But Bigfoot does the same thing. So there's a part of the human, I guess, psyche and ability that we aren't what we used to be. That's for sure. And this technology is there, and we're kind of rediscovering it. / someone's passing us little hints, cues. We're getting little clues from either seances. I think these guys go into these, you hear these parties that the celebrities go to, and you're like, what is really going on here? What are they conjuring up? People aren't just gathering on an island to screw around. There's like an actual and occult practices and activities, and people get sort of sucked into it, and then they get information. They get downloads, or they start all kinds of, I would guess, nefarious things. But there is an origin story, and I think saying that the government has UFOs is just like, I think that's like step 4 or 5. Like, what happened first? Where did that tech come from?
Well, I think too, when we talk about MK Ultra, which we were just talking about, like the idea of it changing, right. is fascinating, because we know for a fact a lot of these folks that are committing these, whether it be a false flag kind of event or these tragedies, are end up being at an FBI safe house, CIA, FBI informants, whether it be the people that tried to kidnap Michigan Governor Gretchen Whitmer, or whether it's the fact that the pilots from 9/11 were staying in an FBI safe house, or you can fill in the blank and you go, okay, so they shut down the LSD program, but what did it become, ninjas, right? Because they're still
butterflies. Did I say ninja? I meant butterfly. The butterfly is no doubt one of God's most beautiful creations. As I empty your mind, you learn martial arts.